How great would it be to get up close and personal with the beauty industry heroes we love and admire, and to ask them, how did you learn to do what you do? I'm Chris Baran, a hairstylist and educator for 40 plus years, and I'm inviting all our heroes to chat and share the secrets of their success. Did you know that there is 877 pounds of waste that goes through North American salons every minute? Catch that, every minute. Now, the reason why I'm excited about this week's guest is he is the owner of the B Hive Salon and the co-founder of Salon Movement, which focuses on salon sustainability. They're certified gold with Green America, platinum with Green Business Bureau. They have been the winner of the International Eco Salon Contest. He personally has an international reputation for leadership in organic beauty. And I'd love to get on to this week's Headcase, Mr. James Alba. Well, James Alba, my friend, just before I start to throw some of the silly questions that we're going to talk about on here, is I have to tell the people that are listening is that when we finally connected by phone, and James said this to me. He says, you're going to be my new best friend, whether you like it or not. And I tell you just right now that I don't care what it is. You may not learn anything that's really valuable about this conversation, but we will have some fun because he is one of my new best friends. James, it is a pleasure to have you here and on board, and welcome.
Listen, awesome to be here with you. I am so thankful to have you on. And I know Chris had sort of started that out, but I started seeing these podcasts pop up in January, person after person every week. And, after the holidays from being in the salon business, January, you're sort of like you need to mentally decompress. And I'm saying, wait, that's a friend of mine that he has on. Hey, that's a really good friend of mine. That's a friend of mine. Why don't I know this guy? And so I called Anna Pacino and I said, hey, listen, what's going on? And why aren't Chris and why can't I text him? Why is he not my friend in my Rolodex? So she's like, that's fine. I'll take care of you,
Yeah. Well, I tell you now knowing that you're from New Jersey, and I'm not going to say whether or not you have any background in the New Jersey underworld. But while we're at it, have a little toast. But I must say, I'm glad that you're calling me your friend, so I don't find any horse heads in my bed or anything like that. So cheers. Here's to you, buddy.
Horse heads, they don't do anymore. Horses are too expensive. The fish in the newspaper, though, is still a thing.
Yeah, that's still there. Listen, I think that it's always interesting to know because, we're just getting to know one another again right now, even though we've had some amazing conversations, and we are going to be best friends in real life as well soon. But I just want people to know who might not know who James is, tell us a little bit about you. You are not a hairdresser, right? But so not. Tell me how you get involved, like why hair now, and what sparked all that?
Well, so what's really funny is my wife and I own a salon called the B Hive Salon in northern New Jersey. Mm-hmm. Opened as a sustainable business. So we sort of, you're talking pre-Green Circle, and I think even in Canada at that point, we had the concept to do that for the environment. But this year we'll be married 20 years. So I've been married to a hairdresser a lot longer. Wait, listen, you're trying to set me up with that? Congrats. I've been married to a hairdresser longer than I've been in the industry. But 12 years ago, the hair industry adopted me graciously, which is always a good thing. But I'll tell you a funny story that I haven't told in a long time, or before we did some of the fun stuff. And now obviously a lot of people know who I am and what my connection to the business is. But most of you went to beauty school or were trained by someone, whether it was Vidal down the line. I got the beauty industry because of a psychic.
Oh, really? I want to hear this story.
Okay. So before we opened our salon, probably about a year before we opened our salon, we were just about to have our third. So we have 3 kids. We have a soon-to-be 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a soon-to-be 13-year-old. And obviously, that can be pretty hectic, especially the hairstylists, and the household is a nutty place. I went back to work for a corporate company. I always owned my own company. And I went back to work corporate because obviously, like everything else in the U.S., you Canadians have the healthcare wrapped down a little better than we do. So it just seemed more. It seemed more prudent to get back into corporate than it would be to stay on my own.
We understand the gist on that.
Exactly. And I went to work for a great place, another family-owned company, and everything was great with it. And I just couldn't get anything to stick. I was in the technology space, and it was just a tough time to try to get any of the projects we were working on. It was just very, very difficult for me to go back into that when you're so used to being your own boss. And my father-in-law is someone that's a psychic aficionado. He's a cup reader by genetics, I guess, and he loves all that. And I am so the non-believer in anything. So half as a joke for a Christmas gift, he got me and my brother-in-law a gift card to have a psychic reading with someone that he had met. And I just laughed it off and I said, you could have given me the money, whatever. And it was just tough. We were just about to have the baby, and I had a big project fall through that I worked on. And we were back in the wine and dining type days, right? So when you're working on it, you're not only working at work, you're taking people out to dinner and you're trying to get the thing to close. And it fell through. And we always had lunch together in the office. It was just our thing. And I said, I have an appointment. I have to leave. And I pulled around the block and I used my psychic friend network gift card. And I talked to the guy, Hector. He's a great guy. If anybody DM me if you need a great psychic, because he's awesome. And funny enough, he came from the technology space too, which I found out after. And he said, what do you want to talk about? Your love life, your kids, like typically they would do. And I said, all that stuff is a mess. We don't need to talk about it. I just want to talk about work. And he said to me, can I ask you a question? And I said, well, I guess I'm paying for it, so I guess you can. And he said, are you losing your hair? And if anyone that knows me, if you know me through the beauty industry or know me in regular life, home life, no way will I ever be bald. I will plant grass seeds. I will plant slow food, flower seeds. I don't care what it is. You will never catch me. I will wear a wig till the day I die. Okay, if I had to. And I said, no. And he said, well, I said, maybe it's the stress you're seeing. He goes, no, I'm seeing you and a connection to hair. And I said, well, my wife's a hairdresser. I said, she's been in the business a long time. I think at that point she was in the business like 18 years or 16 years. And he said, no. When I see that kind of vision, it's you specifically. It's not anyone connected to you. And I just joked it off. And, of course I hang up the phone and I'm like, man, if the guy could have told me how to close the deal I'm working on, I would have been better off. He gave me some line of BS. And sure enough, about a year later, she comes back and, the hair industry is very different from Europe to the US, right? Male, female, and, gender identity isn't part of that, but the actuality of it is Europeans there were a lot of male hairdressers. In the US, it's a lot of female hairdressers. And in a lot of respects, they look at it like, oh, you're the wife or the mom. So it's the second job in the household, that it's not the income or breadwinner. And when she had to get ready to go back to work after having the third, she said, they're just not being flexible for a mom. And they wanted certain hours and things that were really hard to do with, our household. And she said, what do you think if we open our own salon? By the way, at that point I was laid off. So we opened the salon when we won't say fired. We just say I was let go. I was downsized.
Yeah.
And then we decided to do that. But, our household already was, at the forefront eco-wise, not just in regular recycling, but it was always something important to us to be environmentally conscious. And here having 3 kids, right? You're making baby food and you're doing all these things. And then you look at the hair industry that's just a pig in terms of waste and chemicals and things, that we just thought we could do it different. And, in a lot of respects, we were sort of leading the way to what this looks like now. It's still not there, but that was sort of our thing.
Yeah, I want to just jump you back a bit, because I want to definitely go there, particularly with Earth Day coming up and the sustainability and being Canadian. We are like freaks for the environment. At least most of us are. The good ones are. But I want to go back. Where was your turning point that you started to think about sustainability? I mean, you had to go from, we're all kids running through and you're throwing plastic out the window and you're breaking Coke bottles and doing all of those things. And all of a sudden we all get this wake up call that, listen, Mother Earth is sitting there and she's she's going to survive without us. It's just that we won't, but she'll always be there. But what can we do? And what was your turning point? What made you think I've got to be that way now, even before I got into hair?
Well, and it's funny that it started out not even anything to do with being environmental. It was just me and my sister growing up with my parents. Mm-hmm. So anybody can take the garbage out. I try to impress that upon all of my children any day of the week. But
how's that working for you?
Yeah, well, the 80s kids, if there was a son, the son was the garbage man that took it to the curb.
Yeah.
And that was a new thing in terms of your town taking recycling here in the States and separating and things like that. So that was sort of my job. And I didn't even look at it as anything environmental. I just looked at it like, if I'm going to try to earn my allowance, I'm going to have to do this. But after doing that forever, you start to get a little bit older and you start to look at the impact that it has. I think a lot of kids, when you get into your later high school years, right, you start to get some empowerment. I won't call it political empowerment, but you start to, mm-hmm. You start to sow your oats a bit and you're like, hey, I'm going to, you start to become an activist for whatever the cause may be for the youth of the time. And in those days, it was environmentalism. Yeah. And it's funny that I feel like environmentalism, like every 10 years, takes a really hard punch to say like, hey, we're going to bring this back. And then it sort of like peters out a little bit less every year before people are like, hey, did you watch the movie Kiss the Ground? It's like, oh yeah, it was great. Woody Harrelson narrated. It's like, but did you hear that he said there's only 60 harvests left? It's like, oh wow, yeah, I didn't pay attention. And it's like, well, do you know that movie was actually filmed in 2016 and was released in 2018? So we're already behind 5.
Yeah.
So, it was something important. And a lot of that started because as parents, once we became parents, it was because of our kids. We started to look at things differently and how we could make a better impact. I mean, for us personally as a household, sustainability has a much broader spectrum meaning. And as someone that owns a business, whether it was in the salon space or not, the same thing. Sustainability, if you can't keep bodies in the chair, you could have the best charity in the world. You could spend all the time working on something, whether it's kids in foster care or certain ailments and do all this work. But if you don't have bodies to support your business, to have funding to donate, you could recycle everything you have in the whole place and you're just going to go out of business.
Here's one thing I remember when I was a smoker, and while I was never a hardcore smoker, I did smoke and had the cravings for them. And so, but I remember the day I quit, and all of a sudden I became a hardcore. Anything that even smelt like smoke after I was anti-smoking, anti-everything. What is that like? How do you find that is? Because there is, let's face it, for the people that are out there that are worried, you're thinking about sustainability, and you start to do a little research and you know what's going on, you see what's going on, and the mounds and mounds of plastic and everything that's out there. I want to go into more about what that is later, but like even for right now, right while we're on it, what do you say to those people that say, that's all a bunch of poo-poo stuff and we're going to be fine? And what do you say to them?
Well, I mean, you have to admit it's annoying, right?
Yeah.
Recycling. Like I said, I have a lot of friends in Canada. Canadians have been doing it great. And you guys have a lot of open space and things like that. When you get to a place like New Jersey, they'll have a corner, right, that's like 8 by 10, and they'll name it after an astronaut that lived in your town 100 years ago, and they'll call it a park. Right?
Yeah.
That, a park to me, you need to at least be able to play some sport there. There needs to be something, right? It doesn't matter what sport it is. It doesn't have to be humongous. You don't have to have a Major League Baseball stadium there, but there should be something that you can do besides sit on that one little bench on the corner and, oh, that astronaut lived here and he was a great guy. Well, you could have given some more space. The guy went to the moon. It's just, at some point, it's, the bigger issue for me, and I'll tell you what, coming out of the COVID space, right? We had automated garbage cans, no touch. We did so many things as a leader in reopening, not just in the salon industry, but New Jersey specifically. New Jersey is licensed under the Division of Consumer Affairs, which is a whole separate podcast of how crazy that is. But we did a lot to help with the reopening and the students that couldn't take testing and things like that because facilities were closed. So we were not only on, by the way, I'm always the one I got a guy, right? I know it's a Jersey thing. So anybody in the salon industry, they're like, oh, call James, he's got a guy. It even came down to sanitizer and mask sourcing at that point. I mean, I was driving to, I was driving to a couple of my really good friends, Christine Zielinski, who you probably know, she's Vidal alum, Patty Mead, who's down in South Jersey, my friend Steven Statland, who works with Hanzo, who was just at IBS. And I have a truckload of hand sanitizer and automated units and everything in my car and had to meet them. They're in South Jersey. So we picked the central location and we're in a parking garage. We actually wound up having drinks outside at that time, which was the best part of it. And it's like, you got the goods? I'm like opening the trunk and it's like, all right, these two are yours. And people are driving by like, what kind of drug deal? It's like, oh no, we got a sanitizer deal. Don't worry. But it's annoying. I mean, blue recycling bins are what we use in the States. They have the big recycling emblem on them. And can't tell you how many times I go to bring our recycling to the curb at the salon and somebody threw something in there that was definitely a client that doesn't belong in there. A shoe, like, whatever. And it's just kind of like, do you not care?
Yeah.
Is it that it? And I have a really good story for you if you're open to it.
I am.
Okay. So we've been fortunate. Paris is one of my favorite cities anywhere in the world. And we had been fortunate enough to go a few times, whether it was with Davines or, different things we've done in the industry. And the last time we had gone, I guess it was 2018 pre-COVID, we had gone to Italy with Davines. And if you guys don't know, I'm a Davines aficionado. So I'm not, no plugs. I don't care what line you use. They're my pals. They're my people. We were in Parma. And the way we structured the trip, if you guys have never been to Europe, you should all go. But inter-Europe travel is not like travel here between North America, right? You could, for $100, you could fly from Parma to Paris and wherever you want, and it's crazy because the cost that it is here. So I had asked my girls, and they are like, Paris pictures on the wall. Obviously, I'd never been, and I said, we have 4 days at the end of the trip. You guys can pick. Where do you want to go? We can go to Venice. We can go to Paris. And they were like, Paris was it. So we're there, and like other trips that we've taken in the past, we have my in-laws with us because when we go to the hair show, they sort of get to take the trip and they get to watch the kids, and then we get to spend some time together overseas. And we're in a brasserie in Paris, famous place, but I couldn't tell you the name because they all look the same to that degree. And we're there. And, Americans that travel, once you're in like day 6 or 7, you're acclimated to Europe. So when you see other Americans, you're like, speak the language. The book, speak the language. We don't want them to talk to us, So we're right at the last leg of the trip, and we're having a great lunch. We just did a great tour of the Eiffel Tower, and, everybody was, everybody had a great time at that point. And we sit down to have lunch, and a table next to us comes in, and they were from Chicago, as they would say. And it's same type of setup, right? Husband and wife and 3 kids. And we had already been to this restaurant before when we first got there because it was really close to where we stayed. And the waiter remembered us, and we joked around, and we're good. They don't take tips, but we always tip. It's the mafia thing.
The slide.
Yeah. So they were very, very happy to see us, put it to you that way.
Yeah.
And, we already had learned a few language things that we needed to. So they get a kick out of it when you actually try. And for anybody that hasn't been to Paris, Paris gets a bad rap. I think New York City is way worse in terms of communications with the locals than Paris ever is. But if you try a little bit, everybody is a lot cooler.
Yeah.
And the people next to us we were just about finished, and we were joking the waiter and said we were going home the next day. And the waiter comes over, and waiters are professional in Paris. It's a profession.
Yeah.
And he comes over and he says to the wife, and he goes, what would you like to drink? And she's like, I'll have a gin and tonic. And he says, great. He goes, do you have a preference on the gin? And she's like, oh my gosh, what do you have? And he's like, we have Tanqueray, we have Bombay, we have this Parisian gin. Gave her all the options. She goes, I think I'll have that Parisian one that you mentioned. That sounds like it's going to be great. And the dad's in the menu, and the menu was in English, by the way. So it wasn't like he needed a translator, and he does her, and then he does the kids, and goes to the father, and he goes, "What would you like?" And he goes, "I'll have the same thing that she has." He goes, "Oh, you'd like a gin and tonic?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah." And he says, "Well, what's your preference on the gin?" And he says, "I don't care." And he said, "Let me just stop you for a second, if you don't mind." He goes, "Are you saying waiter's choice, or are you saying that you just don't care? Because I never understand that about Americans. Like, do you just not care? Or is it like, hey, whatever you pick is great for me?" And he looked up and he was like, "I apologize." That's an interesting way to put it. And I know the waiter was ribbing him because he was a funny guy. But at the same time, it's like, do you care? Do you have a preference? Or do you want someone to make you more environmentally friendly? Every single place, everywhere you go, has some type of recycling at the very least.
Yeah.
Like, do I need to hold your hand? I will, if you need me to.
Yeah.
Just say I'm bad at it. Help me.
Yep. I really appreciate that story, number one, especially because knowing how you feel about that, and we have this gig, like we just finished with the symposium, and we have a whole group of amazing artists that come out here, and I always have them out to the house, and we make all these avant-garde pieces and wigs for the models, etc. And I'm a stickler for recycling, and so I have separate bins out in our work area downstairs that this is from recycling and this is for waste and so on, and I'll have to go in there, and every day I finally have to stop everybody. Look at, I'm not a fan of dumpster diving, but I don't want to go in and I don't want to have to pick out your coffee grounds out of the plastic, etc., because it ruins it, number one, and it makes my hands dirty. So please, can you just, so I don't want to say the name, but on Seinfeld we had the soup dude, and I don't want to say the words, but I became the recycling dude, and everybody was going, "Oh, Jesus, he's not another freaking rant on me." So, but I think that's just so important that we really start to take a look after stuff. So, let's talk about just a minute for a second I want to talk about your salon, and then I'd like to go into more about sustainability, because we think that sometimes it's an overlooked topic. So, salon, you have a salon out of New Jersey. You've done it with your wife, and you have the salon together, and it's called B Hive. So, I mean, I think for me, because I'm a 60s dude, and believe me, that was the one thing that I couldn't do well, and I almost got fired from one job because I would backcomb the hair and it would sort of slide over to the side as she walked out the door, and I think that's when I became a Sassoon freak, because I couldn't do that then. But where did the name B Hive come from?
Well, and it's funny. So I know that we're officially seeing each other. We've talked a lot. I always have a story. Like, I'm always, I'm the worst one to get into the bar because you have to take me out in a stretcher. My wife was a 60s fan too, and that's obviously the B Hive hairstyle, and which was created in Long Island, so close to home. She had a list. I guess a lot of people, when they graduate beauty school, if you go to beauty school, you have the dream of opening a salon. So I'm the paperwork guy, right? I'm the one, that does the taxes, that does all the stuff, that structures all of that salon, home, whatever it is. And I was going through a file, and I keep all the certifications that, from staff to her or to whatever it is. I do all the licensing for the staff. I make sure everybody's on point. And I found a notepad with potential salon names on it that were like, if I ever opened a salon type of thing, right? So you're talking, a little while ago. I can't tell you exactly when, but it was a little bit ago.
We'll leave it at a couple of years.
And on there was B Hive. And when we were talking about opening, I said, I'm kind of liking that because we already wanted to put the eco spin on it. And obviously bees are so important to the planet. And, and already paying homage to the hairstyle of, a very well-known hairstyle from those retro days. And she was on the fence. And she's like, I don't know. I don't think people will drive by and know it's an actual hair salon and that they wouldn't get it. And we were at, so crazy. We were at a Pee-wee soccer thing. So anybody that has kids knows that if you have a younger child that's in Pee-wee soccer, there is no soccer going on. I'm sorry, Europeans football. There's nothing going on of any structure. They have cones on their head. They're running around. There's no There's a lot of whistle blowing, but not actual. Nobody. There's probably not even a goal or a goalie. And so she's in the car. We just had our third. So she's in the car with the baby.
You just had your third in the car?
Well, it's all over the place. We have three. It's like, after three, it's like have 100. Who cares? So she's with the baby in the car. I have my middle, who's in a diaper, like on my shoulder, and my son is doing the pee-wee cone on the head thing. We're literally 100 yards from each other, right? If that. So the car's here. I'm in the middle a lot. I have my, before we had the fancy wireless AirPods, we had the ones that plugged in, which are annoying. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling her that, the paperwork to file for the state, to name recognition, LLC, the stuff we have to do, like we have to do this because we have to put it on the lease. Like we're down to like 7 days. Like you have to just bite the bullet on, what the name is going to be. And she's still torn. And I forget it's funny. I wish I remembered the second name. There were two and B Hive was one. And while she's on the phone with me and I'm like, it's a lot of paperwork. You never know what the state. I'm doing the manager thing at that point. And all of a sudden I get a pinch in my arm and I wind up getting stung by a bee under the baby's diaper, right? Like I'm not near a flower. I'm not near anything. Literally in the middle of a parking lot. I get, if any of you that've been stung by a bee, and just sidebar to this, Marina Marchese, who's the only American trained by the Slow Food Presidia to be a honey expert. She's in Weston, Connecticut. She's awesome. She does a lot of rare and exotic honeys. When I told her how many times I've been stung by, she keeps bees too. When I told her how many times through my childhood till now I've been stung by a bee, she's like, you must not be really nice to bees. But anyway, underneath the baby's diaper, I get stung by a bee. And I said, you know what? I'm hanging up the phone now because the name
And I want to be clear. When you say, I want to go back, because you said you're holding the baby. So it's underneath the baby's diaper between your skin and you.
Yeah, so like in her elbow area, the baby's on me. I'm holding the baby. And all of a sudden, I'm like, what the hell just, what bit me or what happened? What's coming out of this baby's diaper? And it was a bee that stung me that was underneath.
Yeah, because I kept thinking when you said it was underneath the baby's diaper, I kept thinking, well, if he was in between where the baby and the diaper was and the other things that are in there, I think this must have been a different kind of, let's not go there.
Yeah.
So you got the salon, B Hive, which I love, by the way. And I think in my whole world of travel, I think there's only two that I know of, that I've heard of. Because I think that I have heard of one other salon called the B Hive, and I don't know if it was just that it was B something or it was B Hive, but I love it. So now you've gone to the sustainability, and that was there from the very beginning, yeah?
It was. So we opened that way. So
yeah, what was the client's reaction? What were they like?
It was very different for us because we opened that way. So it was just a thing. So, obviously, listen, gray coverage is bread and butter of the salon industry at that point. If you want to make money, you can do all the fancy highlighting, but reality of it is your 4 to 6 week gray coverage clients are what keep the lights on in most cases.
Thank you.
Coverage was always the thing. Hey, if it's a natural product that you're using or doesn't have the same chemicals or ammonia free. So they were first concerned about coverage. Yeah. Before environmentalism, before personal health and body health. Yeah. It was like, hey, listen, I appreciate what you're doing, but it's going to cover my gray.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm going to stop you for a second there, just because, when you really realize that when they first started coloring hair, they would use bird manure and other ingredients to put on their hair. So I think that we've come a long way from that, but it's still... Well, mind you, maybe that was organic. Well, I guess maybe that was organic.
And, it's funny that I've been challenged. So I'm your product and ingredient specialist, right? So I know not just ordering hair color, I know enough to be dangerous. I mean, I can't tell the story on a live podcast, but I'll tell you afterwards of a certification I almost achieved from someone that never even went to beauty school. But, the reality of it is you have to look at it. They want their coverage. You're not going to ever drink hair color, right? There's not like, hey, it's Gatorade now makes hair color that you can also drink to rehydrate. It's just never going to happen. Organic chemistry, we've fought the war on organic. most things in chemistry are organic.
Yeah.
Not in the same way that we look at organic now in terms of how it is, but those things are not going to change. People are going to want to color their hair. So our mission now after, I guess we're going into our 12th year now, has sort of changed a bit to say, well, we're going to try to find products that have the best ingredients that are still performance.
Right.
We want to charge the money we charge. Expert level status. You can't say, hey, we're using bird poop or bird shit. and it's going to be less money to come here.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is you want to be able to charge the money that you deserve, right? Everybody should charge their worth, which is a whole separate podcast that you should talk to. I have a friend that I can hook you up with on that one. But they want it to work. But at the same time, you have them in your chair. So no matter what your activism is, tell me you're not environmental, that's fine. Breast cancer, there's so many things that salons have attached to, right? That you have a 1.5 or 2 hour captive person that trusts you enough to let you wet them down and do something to them that they're going to go home and have to have somebody see how good they look afterwards. You have a captive audience. So use that time to talk about your environmentalism, talk about your rebooking strategy, whatever it is, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, I think that particularly, because I think we were at an event this last weekend, and I was talking to somebody just about how they really wanted to help to change the mindset of the world on hairdressing, because and it's all based on money. They feel that hairdressing is a fallback onto profession, job, as they would put it. But they don't realize that in our industry, applying yourself properly, you can write your own check, literally, by choosing your hours, educating yourself, moving yourself up the ladder, and just saying, look, if I want to make more money than I'm making right now, then what do I have to learn to improve myself, and then just set a price. And I think that it's I'm putting it very simply, and I don't mean to disparage our industry in that regard, but there is so many people in our industry that have such great earning potential, and I don't want to get our Canadian and US counterparts of W9s and 1049 64-7s, but listen, I think that there's so many hairdressers that earn as much and sometimes way more than a lot of what people are calling the professional, as much as I hate that word.
Well, so this falls, believe it or not, this actually falls into sustainability, right?
Yeah.
You want to be able to sustain your business no matter what. So I know it's a double-edged sword in terms of bringing in the environmentalism on it. But I had done a class. There's I don't know do you know Danny Pato? New Zealand?
I know the name. I don't know personally.
Danny, or Denny, as you would say if you're from New Zealand. His husband Ryland is a friend of mine. He's the distributor for New Zealand that we had met back in 2014 in London, and they're super green. I mean, New Zealand should be the role model for everything that everyone does. And it just so happens that his husband is I joke with him. I'm like, how many times are you going to be New Zealand and Australian hairdresser of the year? I'm like, you're going to need a bigger shelf. You're going to need bigger screws to hold the shelf up. But we had talked about doing something for his staff to talk to people that live in a place that's really eco, okay, because of the industry. So we had developed a class called Communicating Your Sustainable Message. And it was sort of a concept to get them to understand why, as an industry that's a waster, right? The salon industry wastes 877 pounds of waste every minute.
Wow.
Every minute.
Well, no, I want to go back to that. So pause right there. Say that again.
877 pounds of waste every minute. I don't care what the waste is.
Just in our industry.
In our industry exclusively.
We're not talking about all the world combined. Just as hairdressers behind the chair, the crap that we throw out, the color we throw out, the stuff that we waste that just goes into the trash.
Yeah.
Wow.
Every single minute. And I mean, when you drill down the water waste and wash it, there's so many other stats that go in beyond that you could drill down into. But, from my end, I think that's the most impactful thing that you can say to your clients and you can explain. And what's funny is that when I talk to a lot of salon owners I know, salons always have something going on, right? You just had an education event where you took an advanced cutting class for the whole team. You have a promotion on some shampoo you sell. You have an event that you're sponsoring, whether it's for the, police or the local school or something, that hairstylists always divert back to talking about your dog, your husband, your kids, or something that, from a consultative standpoint, just from the hair and the look and the color and everything alone, the product usage, what you're doing, that's a whole different problem. But they never commanded the space enough. And when you look at it now and you're saying, well, why do they think that hairdressers don't make money? Right. And I'm not getting into the Department of Labor statistics and hiding cash type of thing. That's not my business. I don't work for the IRS. They should hire me though, because I heard they pay really well. They pay better than the B Hive.
I understand that they were supposedly hiring on about 50 or 60,000 of them. So you wouldn't get fired from that one, buddy. I can guarantee.
I would warn you, everybody, for 2024, you better make sure your T's are crossed twice and your I's are dotted twice, because it's going to get interesting. But it's sort of a lost space that they just thought that they were it was like water cooler talk became what happens. And I think one of the things that makes me the saddest about COVID was, besides all the crazy deaths listen, I acknowledge all those people that passed from it. In the New York City area, I mean, we're not a huge salon. We're a 6-chair salon. We had 5 clients that were good clients pass. Besides people that are clients that had people pass. So, we looked at it really different. I mean, we watched the news every day where they were putting outdoor refrigerators and it's not a COVID talk, but I kind of hoped that after all of that stuff, hairdressers would have come back and said, hey, halt, I'm an expert. I realized in these 3 years of the blip, right?
Yeah.
That I'm really good at my job. How many years of experience do you need to be a master, right?
Yeah.
And was the 10,000 hours is the number?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I don't care if you're playing guitar or you're playing that drum set that I own that I never even played. You see it in the corner there. Those are the Jordans I wear, but the drum set just there for show. They just never embraced it. And I know a lot of it for hairdressers was the uncertainty of like, oh my God, am I going to be able to go back and have a job? And what are people going to do? But, I would have thought that the spin and what I hope maybe we can do as an industry is look at the health and wellness component of it and say that's sustainable too. Yeah. Like you can't be somebody that does yoga every day, right? And then say, well, I throw all my bottles right in the river. It's like, screw the fish, man. I'm going to yoga every day and I don't drink or smoke, but I'm throwing every piece of plastic I have in the river. Is there a bigger river I can send it to? Because I'm really want.
Yeah, because mine's full now. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But that's the whole thing is that I think as an industry, you started to have, especially where we are in New Jersey, right? So you had mobile units, you have suites, you have things that have changed the dynamic because they structured it around almost like a right to work. Like everybody should be able to afford and own their own business, however that looks. But they didn't unify anyone with that. Right. And there was nothing that sort of circled the wagons for the industry and said, hey, I always say this, I'm lucky enough to know a lot of really great famous hairdressers, and I'm a ball buster, if I'm allowed to say that. We can edit that ball buster out if you want me to. But Maurice Tidy, I got introduced to Maurice during
amazing gentleman.
Oh, he's like unreal. Yeah. Maurice created the graduated bob. Yeah. Okay. Which I would be hard pressed to find any beauty school in any country, in any place in the world that does not teach the graduated Bob.
Right. Exactly.
Where does it say Maurice Tidy?
Right.
Check Maurice Tidy out because he was Vidal's first assistant, and you should totally, like, pay. You don't have to pay tribute to him, but it's just the credit sometimes gets lost.
Yeah, but like, there's so many people. Let me back that up a step. There's so many industries, so many people that revere the people that created, and the people that started, and the people that really innovated, and yet I can only speak for my era, and because I can say fart because it's my show, but I'm the old fart, and I'm not going to go, oh, old fart, young people, and therefore you got to listen to me. But I think that what really helped, and I'm just going to speak about me blossom in my industry, helped me be who I am, was the people that came before me, and learning from them and watching what they did and knowing who they are and knowing where something came from. And because I can remember being at hair shows and people would say, well, this is my thing. And I went, oh, first of all, that's the line of El Toro Caca, because you didn't create that. So-and-so created it. And you just made me think less of you because you're trying to take credit for something somebody else did. Well, so that's why I think it's so important. Our industry, young, old, whatever you're at, know your industry, know where stuff came from.
And I think that's where I fall in, right? So I'm sort of, I know the joke with Intercoiffure is they call me the unicorn. My other friends with our beauty business reset show that we do, I'm the mayor because I have everybody's cell phone number. I mean, I have, if I, God forbid I lose my iPhone, because I have some hairdressers' phone numbers in there that I probably shouldn't have, that I'm way above my pay grade, that I'm lucky enough to call my friends and someone that I know. But because I'm so interested in the business.
Yeah.
That's why. Stephen Moody. Was Stephen Moody your last episode?
He was, because we record, he was a few back.
Okay.
But gracious man and one of my dear friends.
I love him. Okay. Yeah. And what's funny about someone like him that's so well trained and done so many storied from in the industry overall is that when we talk off camera, right? Yeah. He's amazed. He's like, wow, you just, I really care. Yeah. I'm really interested. I love the lineage and the history of where hair, how it started and what it turned into that. And I know a lot of stuff now. So by having friends like that, if I talk to someone else that I never met, they're, oh, how do you know all this stuff and you don't do hair? Matter of fact, I have more conversations sometimes at an event where a month or so later with the follow-up, right? Everybody circles back. Usually if you go, so you guys know, if you go to a big hair show, there's so much work that goes into going to it. Probably takes you 3 or 4 weeks before you circle back to the people you met. But where they come back and people have been mad at me and said, I didn't know you didn't do hair. And I was like, well, you didn't ask me. They're like, yeah, but you talked about all this stuff and I didn't know. I said, well, I own a hair salon with my wife, but they're amazed that I don't do hair. And I said, well, I'm the project. I'm starting a TikTok with my littlest one called Dad in the Projects because I do all the school projects in the house. And I said, listen, a pair of Crayola crayons and some construction paper scissors. I'm your man. I'm the one you want to call. Outside of that, Hikaris or Hanzos or whatever, you don't want to give it to me. You're going to get hurt, man. You're going to get really, really hurt. And not in the mafia way, just in the
it's a bandage way. Yeah. In the bandage.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about. I want to go back because I'm afraid I'm going to leave this. I want to talk to you just a little bit more about you personally in in a second. But I don't want to leave this. We've got this great opportunity with Earth Day coming up, and so tell us about. I mean, it's funny. If you're talking to most people, they probably only heard of Earth Day in the last couple of years, unfortunately. But tell us a little bit about Earth Day and why should people's ears pick up?
Well, and like I said, I speak to a lot of people in the hair industry, and I know the creatives like to think differently. So I'm giving you the drill down, not the environmental committee version of anything. But
Yeah.
Rachel Carson wrote a book in 1962 called Silent Spring. If you guys want, follow me. I'm at Patron St. James on Instagram. Find me on Facebook. I answer messages because, I don't have a team of people like Chris does. I posted a video, I guess now it was 3 years ago, because that was the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And it started out very basic, just being concerned for the environment. But Rachel Carson really was the one that started it and got no credit for it. And part of the reason was she was a scientist, but she was also a housewife and a mom. So in the 60s, they didn't care about a housewife. And Reader's Digest wanted to publish her article about coming back from the war with using DDT as a pesticide, which is, by the way, I always have somebody else start my car because I'm always expecting a car bomb. So if Dow Chemical wants to come here and do anything to me, I got you covered. I'm going to give you the read between the lines, Dow Chemical. We already know what's going on. But she went in and said, hey, I think this is going to be an issue. And she had studies to back it up and things like that. And Reader's Digest didn't publish the article because they basically said, well, nobody wants to hear from a woman. Okay. And they didn't publish it. And there's a documentary floating somewhere about her. And unfortunately, they made it really boring. Like I almost feel like hopefully you have so many viewers on YouTube.
Netflix, we got to get Lee. My son is a producer, Lee, and he's on the call. That is something you guys got to look at, or get somebody that you go know in your industry to do a documentary on that. Yeah.
And then, believe it or not, the second one is Dr. Seuss. Yeah. The Lorax, right? For any of you that saw the original, that read the Lorax, I mean, it was a book from, I think, before I was born, which is I love things before I was born because it makes me sound so young. But that was like in the early 70s. And then obviously they did that fantastic movie. Danny DeVito was the Lorax voice and all that. And that was about environmentalism because by the time information exchange was so different than it is now, that by the time that he heard about, hey, this environmentalism thing is a thing, he wrote the story based on industry, cutting down trees and all those things. And, just those two things alone, it's really sad. And he's got a line. So if you guys have ever watched the Lorax or read the book, there's a headstone that says unless, right? And it's sort of, I know Dr. Seuss was a very interesting cat, right? We'll all agree on that. But I think the statement was, unless someone cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to change. It's not. Yeah. And it's exactly the way that it is. But, from a business perspective, when I work with salons, you can change tomorrow. Have a meeting, bring your staff and say, hey, we're no longer going to do this, whatever it is. You can send your clients. You can put printing, is so easy. Put a huge sign. Hey, we're no longer going to do free conditioning treatments or whatever it is. You can have those conversations and broach them with your clients and your staff anytime you feel like it. Listen, owners out there, you're the ones that pay the bills. You're the ones that have sleepless nights. If the environmental side is something that speaks to you and bothers you, 877 pounds of waste a minute in the industry should shake some people up, but change. And, spring is interesting. And, April is spring, you have Easter, you have Passover, you have, the flowers and crocuses are coming out and all that. It's really about change overall, right? Like it's a time of change. So just shut up and change.
Yeah.
What are you going to wait for? You don't have to do everything. If someone wants to know how to make their salon as environmental as possible, I'm like, I should be wearing a jacket from the Masters, the golf tournament. That's so green. But we're 4-time green certified. And to be completely honest with you, I could give a shit less about the certifications. I like my awards that we have. And, we've been happy to be a Salon Today 200 winner multiple times over the last 12 years. The reality of it is the certifications, I don't care. I want to make sure that our clientele and our staff understand that this is why we're doing it, because we can. We have a voice, right? We have, that captive client and those clients that are in that you can talk about any of this anytime you want. And you can, you want all the other waste, the foil waste, the color waste, and all that. There's ways to fix a lot of that.
Yeah.
It's a conversation. Instead of talking about their dog and their kids not doing their homework, command the space again. And listen, you don't have to talk about environmentalism. Talk about the precision haircut you're going to do or what you're going to change in their formula and be the boss.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I'm afraid for the younger stylists coming up, is that because technology is so forward now, that you have someone that can graduate beauty school, have an awesome TikTok, get some followers, and turn around and say, hey, I charge $450 for a full highlight and haircut. And maybe the lingo, I don't know what the translation is to why the client leaves and says, wow, this was great, but they're not troubleshooting, right?
Right.
You take a woman that comes in that's in her late 50s and 60s that's on different medications and her gray's not covering and her hair isn't laying the right way that she wants to do it because the way she styles it, and you navigate her through that whole thing, she'll listen to anything you want to tell her after that. Right. When she walks in and that's
where trust is built in.
Well, but now she trusts you. And now if you say, hey, listen, we sponsor the local school for their garden program or their book bag program, or we're doing this environmentally. You trust me in this. This is what our company is founded on. Do you think they're not going to listen?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I just want to, I guess, because it might be my era, but I also listen to so many people. I traveled. I'm always on the road listening to people, and the biggest thing that I hear is people are so afraid to raise their prices. And what's piquing this with me is when you said, I'm going to start charging for my, or I'm going to stop giving away my treatments for free. Is that there's so many people that we run a business. And so everything, just like if you've been to a lawyer or a doctor or anything, you get charged for everything. And yet people want to either, number one, not charge for it. Number two, slather it on the head and it's just not, and then it goes down the drain and they're not charging for it. And it's just a waste and people aren't making the money that they deserve. And I wonder how much of it is if we can, I'm going to mix this with a little bit of what you said earlier, which I loved. And you said about helping our industry to find out their, and it wasn't the word you used, but it's the word I'm going to use, their worth. And I think is it that we don't feel that we're worthy of charging? Is it that we don't have the confidence? What is it?
Well, so I can tell you, and like you, I am so grateful and fortunate to have so many great friends in this industry. And I mean, so anybody that, hopefully you have younger people that are watching this too, because I feel like the people that I call my friends like you, like we could have a whole class for the new graduating class of beauty school and say, okay, we're not going to record this. We're just going to give you hints and tips and things to do. But they're just the problems and things that happen. They're just always rotating and similar to how they roll through. No one charges their worth because 50% of everyone that went to beauty school was somebody tried to talk them out of going to beauty school.
Yeah, yeah.
It was never viewed as a viable profession, right? I said, we talked about the waiter in Paris. You could say, hey, Mom, I'm going to become a waiter and I'm going to have the white napkin and I'm going to go work at this brasserie that's up the corner that's right from the Eiffel Tower. And I was like, oh my God, Johnny got a job. This is a great job for him. People go to beauty school and they're like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Is that really what you want to do?
Yeah.
And, a lot of that is because a haircut's never been just a haircut, right? And I think what happened was it got downgraded. And I'm not going to throw Supercuts and those type of places under the bus, but to be honest with you, I don't give a shit. Let them put the car bomb in. Is that they didn't look at themselves as a vehicle. That I can say that, right? That was we could bleep.
We'll bleep.
But they didn't look at themselves as a vehicle to say, hey, we're going to take kids out of beauty school, put them into an hourly position, give them some live tackling dummies that aren't mannequin or doll heads, and then release them into the wild to go to salons because eventually they're going to know they can make more money working in a salon. they sort of tried to contain it and turn that crew into people that didn't advance beyond that, where it became an hourly job. And they would say, well, minimum wage in our state is X, plus you make tips. Okay. But that's not what this job has ever been about.
No.
The job has never been about a haircut, right? It's always been about trust. It's always been about looking at troubleshooting that they have at home, their lifestyle. There's so many facets to what they look like. When we first opened the salon, we were at a training event, probably my very first one. And it was, however the saying goes about, your hair is the crown you wear all day or every day or whatever. I don't want to, whoever wrote it, it's great, but I don't want to paraphrase it in the wrong way. But it's true. Like, that's what everyone sees, where they work, where they are. And I know this is why you're going to hate having me as a guest, because I am like the Wild West over here. But when you look at things like mental health being so prevalent, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of different respects, not in the crazy underwear guy with a gun in the subway shit you hear about in New York, but in everyday life of kids and people that have struggled through the last, not even COVID, like I said, this was going on before COVID. COVID just, the boil came to the top. That, the way you look is the way you're perceived, right? Weird kids that can pull it off get mohawks. That's always been the way. Mohawks are back, by the way, for funky kids that can pull it off. Great. That doesn't always apply to the regular kids that are struggling at home and whatever. So by being able to teach somebody how often to cut their hair, not even the coloring for the people that need to do that, by being able to teach them that how tall you are, how wide you are, none of that makes a difference. But hair is so important to that component that we've lost the whole thing of it. That, you looked at it like, oh, it's just a haircut. Great. Okay. Well, your favorite pair of scissors, how much did they cost you? I'm sorry, shears. Sorry.
Yeah.
Gentile.
We come from Canada. The shears are for sheep. Scissors are for hair. Yeah. But that's enough. But you hit on such a strong topic right there about mental health right now, and it's running prevalent. And you look at the kids. I saw this thing the other day, or heard it on TV, that I think they said like 35 or 40% of the kids that are going to school right now are having some kind of mental. They're depressed, or they're in some form of anxiety just based on what's going on. And I don't want to go down that path, but I think that there's so much of that going on. And I just wish that if I had a wish for our industry or for our, the totality of mankind right now, is if you could just show some people some kindness. I'll give you an example. We were just doing a show in Orlando, and we had this one kid, good-looking kid, first show they ever did, modeled for us. And he was put into some really kind of interesting situations of having to model and choreography and so on. And I had people coming up to me and saying, "Oh, look at how he looks like he doesn't really, he looks like he doesn't want to be there." And so I started thinking about it for a second, because I went, "No, you're right. He does look like he doesn't want to be there, but it's because nobody told him that we value him being there." And he's looking at these other people around him that are doing this fantastic job, which makes you go introverted even more so. So I went up to that kid after and I said, "Look, I just want to say how proud I am of you. I know how hard that was for you out there, and I just want to tell you that you were great out there." And he says, and I just said, "I just want to tell you one thing, and this is going to make you even be better. Go out there and own that frickin' stage. Just be there like you should be there, and you own it, and nobody can take that away from you." And you should have seen that kid on the next time that he went on stage, because he had about, I don't know, 1 or 2, 3 more segments he had to be in. And by the end of the 2 days, this kid was just, I'm not going to say he certainly wasn't, the top contender that was out there, but the confidence he had and the way that kid walked on stage. And I walked up to him at the end of the stage, and I said, "I can't tell you." And there was a bunch of other people that did a way better job than he did at that. But I just walked up to him and I said, I just want you to know how proud that I am of you for how you improved from show to show to show.
But that's the thing, is that industry-wide, listen, so I'm going to wrap that whole thing in with a nice bow. Not charging your worth means that people that have experience that own salons are overworking.
Yeah.
Right. So we're talking about trying to bring the younger people into employee-based salons and whatever it is. The work-life balance component is a big thing for them. So you have owners that went through all the crazy over the last 4 years, 3, 4, whatever, that are overworking to compensate, that don't have any work-life balance, trying to hire people that want work-life balance because the owners aren't charging their worth.
Yeah.
So, the way the machine works, I just don't understand why no one in the industry. I love avant-garde. You had Michael Polsinelli. Michael's my boy. Michael does crazy. I mean, Michael defies the laws of everything, right? I love hair shows. I love crazy stuff that you'll never do on a client. Like, that's probably my favorite because I don't do hair, right? So great coverage, I could care less about your great coverage. But, you have those components to everything. And then you have a whole nother sector where it's like, do we need to have counseling between owners and staff? Right? Do we still need to talk about toxic break rooms?
Yeah.
like how many months have to go by for you as an owner? And listen, salon owners, I know, man, payroll and stuff and ordering and stuff and staffing and scheduling and stuff and clients. There's so much, the layers are there. But how many months do you have to go by before you walk into the toxic break room and say, like, hey, can I ask you a question? Does anybody give a shit that, and I was going to, what I was going to use? Does anybody care that I'm working, we're open 40 hours a week on the door and I'm spending another 20 hours a week doing the administrative and another 20 not sleeping because I'm worried about you guys. And all you want to talk about is the fact that, blah, 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 blah. Like, when does the conversation start? And that's where sustainability comes in. Yeah. It's a conversation. How do you feel on it? I don't think, I wish I tried to look it up before the call. Global warming was a misnomer.
Right.
That was not supposed to be what it was called. It was like climate change was what it was supposed to be called. And was really the global warming because of the oceans getting warmer, which is a bigger problem than anybody. Everybody, global warming, it's snowing in New Jersey. I know, Dick. Yeah. Like, I get it. But they're not paying attention to the whole statement. That's not a political issue. And when you watch something, like I said, like Kiss the Ground, and they say 60 Harvest, these are the farmers. I laugh because there's probably only a few movies that will make me, like, lose my shit, okay, in a good way. And I always jokingly say Interstellar is one of those movies. So if anybody's ever seen that, Matthew McConaughey's in it, and it's about space and the farming and everything else. Nothing to do about sustainability per se. It's more about outer space. But the daughter reminds me of my middle. And the end of that movie, even now I can be like, all right, I don't have to shut the camera off. But a lot of it is about the Dust Bowl stuff that's happening with farming. That there's just they're over-tilling and there's no rain and all these things happen. Like, it gets out of control really fast. So just like you and I as people of age, some of us that die and some of us that don't die, when you look at how technology has advanced so quickly, and like I said, from Rachel Carson to Dr. Seuss, that it took 9 years for that to turn into something that, down the hole and people starting to realize it was something. Technology now is instant, man. Something happens, it's like, man, it's all over the internet. It takes minutes. It's a lot faster when it comes down to environmentalism now too. So you can think what you want about recycling, and you can think what you want about just traditional waste. And I hate the fact I have a great shirt that National Geographic North Face did that was made out of plastic water bottles, and of course my son decided to wear it yesterday because it's a cool shirt, so I have to have my fast fashion on for the episode. But when you start to look at things overall, especially Americans, we overspend on stupidity. Right? Pretend you're broke for a week and don't spend anything, and see how much you save. pretend that the earth only has 55 harvests left, because it does, and see how much you save.
Yeah.
Like, it's a scary, scary thing that you see everybody's watching The Walking Dead and all these zombie shows and The Last of Us and all this stuff that happens. It's like, listen, according to actual scientists that know what they're talking about, that's like 50 years away. Now, hopefully, I will not be here. I'd love to spend my 101st birthday buried quietly under the ground. But, my kids, and if they get married and have kids, well, definitely. Like, that should scare the shit out of you, not the hair color waste per se, or the biodegradability of what you're doing or recycling. But, I think that's worth a conversation, and it's not politicized. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. Be on top of it, be left of it, right of it, it doesn't matter. But, I just, at some point, I don't know, it disturbs me.
I'm with you, brother. It's something that, especially now, and especially with it having an Earth Month, Earth Day, maybe we just need to change that into, maybe if it was Earth Year, then nobody would care about it. But we've got to do something to shift the needle. So, listen, I want to talk. Where did you have mentors or people that came before you that helped to get you into this?
My gosh, man, I've been so lucky. And mind you, for people that are catching into this late, I am not a hairstylist. I'm just someone that was super interested in the industry, because that's how we fed our kids, right? So I needed to make sure I was super interested, because we needed to keep the lights on and do whatever. I had a couple of great, am I okay to plug a few people?
Yes, please.
Neil Dukoff from Strategies, which some people do the Strategy Salon. He was my very first seminar. We didn't even open yet, but I'm the data guy, right? I had business plan that was 75 pages long, and I got invited to a seminar that he was teaching at for a line that we weren't going to carry, which is funnier. And I met Neil then. Robert Reed, for you guys that don't know.
Oh, I love Robert.
Robert is just my guy, man. Robert has been super gracious to me, taught me so much. Always on speed dial if I need them. Derek Hull, that owns Salon Ninja, that I do the beauty business reset with. I've known Derek for way more years than we've done. By the way, we set our 30-year anniversary for Beauty Business Reset. But I've known Derek a lot longer than that. He's another techie and data guy that owns salons. There's so many. Anybody that Vidal wise, I was just PA teaching 2 classes. I do a lot of retail and nuts and bolts classes because I can't do the tech stuff, but I just saw Gerard from Hairbrain there, and Christine, Steve, Sally Rogerson. I almost feel bad. Like, I can't just list them all down. But I'll tell you something funny. I guess it was last year. We wanted to do something. I always say the only person I've never met that I would have definitely met.
Hold that one.
Go ahead.
Hold that one. I've got that one coming later. I want to find that out. Thank you. So listen, I want to. This is a part I want to throw out. This is called a rapid fire section, and I do this with everybody. Same questions. The whole point behind this, I'm going to just throw it out and give me your answer. First thing that comes to your head. And I want to preface this first question because usually people think in our industry that creativity is just based on hair, but to me that creativity happens in everything. So when what turns you on in the creative process?
I think for me it's the start of it, because I don't do hair, but like I said, dad in the projects with the kids, it's when you structure it and get it set to go, I can see the end result before I get there. And that really, it gives you something to kind of look forward to at the end, that I have a good vision for what it's going to look like. Can't promise it always looks like what I think, but.
No. What stifles it?
I'm an overthinker. It's the tourist mentality, man. I think it's just that weird thing that we do, and we just, pace a lot and drink a lot, and then overthink it, and too many tarps laid out.
The bull.
Yeah, that's the bull.
Okay, good. So things in life that you dislike the most.
You know, I think that we had talked a lot about environmentalism from the sustainable, not from the sustainable side, but from the hardcore, like just putting the right recycling in the right place. I think for me personally, the shift happened after the last few years to people just not being gracious or nice, right?
Yeah.
So, I know for my kids, the gendered identity and all the things that are going to happen for them, they have no problem with any of that, right? That's what's so funny. It's the adults that are like, what do you mean? But I don't think you should hold a door for a woman. I think you should hold the door for anybody behind you.
Exactly.
Right? So it's never about a gender thing for me. And I think a lot of that is lost where I just hope it doesn't go too far that it just never comes back, that it's like, oh, we just don't hold doors anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice, right? Somebody held the door for you and you said, oh, hey, thanks. And you were like, oh, you're welcome. Like that interaction with the stranger that wasn't anything super intimate was just kind of like, oh, she said, thanks. I said, welcome. Like you just had a little blip of something. I don't know.
Love it. What do you love most about things in life?
I think now seeing my kids growing up, now that I'm getting to my youngest one will be a teenager at the cross of the new year. Just the difference is I never thought first of all, I think I'm a fantastic dad. And if they tell you any different, if they come up here afterwards, they're all liars, you know? I just think it's interesting that now I'm finally in a position where as my older two are going to be 15 and 16, that, different, it's like almost living on a different planet. Like things are different from when I was 15 and 16, but being able to give them some advice, not even super hardcore advice, just normal advice. And now they're more receptive where when they were young, it's like, hey, don't ride your bike in the street. Now it's sort of like, hey, do this way. And, it's kind of nice that they're like, I don't know. Dads and moms are always role models because they have to be, because like the baby bird, you're chewing their food and spit in their mouth. Now when they're becoming teenagers and they actually are like, hey, what would you do in this situation? And how does this work? It's a little more interesting for me and I like it a lot more than chewing their baby food.
That was a whole visual that I had in my brain there. Most difficult time in your life?
I think we're going through some of it right now. I mean, my wife had spinal surgery, who's our main, I would say anybody that's out there that's in the industry, she's been in the industry 30 years. She just had major spinal surgery, a lot of it genetic, but some of it also, job related. The planning of that, it just makes it really hard because we're still sort of, no matter what anything, like COVID recovery is not completely there yet. So it's just been a lot and being parents of 3 kids and things like that, it's been a rough go. But what's nice is the positive of that negative is that we're unified, right?
Yeah.
So we're, household wise, everybody is, all hands on deck. Everybody's, I wish they would swab the deck, but all hands are on deck.
Yeah. Well, she's been in our thoughts. So I'm glad that she's on the other side of it. The things that you hate most about our industry.
Consultation.
Maybe I'll replace that with dislike because hate's a strong word.
No, I'm going with hate, man. Consultations. Like, I don't understand. And like everybody knows, if you've listened to this whole thing, I am not a hairdresser. I am so big into the consultation side of it. I don't understand. Maybe it's my sales background and I just look at it differently than people do behind the chair. But, the start of the service, right? The beginning of getting the anticipation of what's going to happen next. There's so much lost in that consultation that there's just not, it's hard to recover after that. And I can't stand it. So I think everybody should go back and say, maybe I shouldn't say, hey, how's your color? Yeah. How about we talk about, do you want to make a change? Like, I think the expertise is so lost right at the beginning that there's no way to recover it in that service.
Right. Person you admire the most?
There's a lot, but I have to be honest with you. Gino Stampora is my boy. Gino has been great. I mean, like I said, I'm not outing anybody else. I mentioned a lot of people that were mentors to me, but Gino has really helped me navigate through. I always jokingly say, like, I know you're really sort of semi-retired, so you're trying to groom me to be the replacement closer for the New York Mets. Like, if that's the way it is, it's fine. Like, I know what he does. I'm like, I'm cool with it. But Gino's been really good because listen, Jersey Italian. He's like an uncle that,
Love it, and I love that man too. Person, here's why I was holding you back. Person that you wish you could meet.
Well, it's definitely Vidal. We opened in 2012, same year that Vidal passed. To be honest with you, I didn't know. I know my wife had taken a lot of classes at Vidal, whether it was the city or wherever it was. Vidal didn't speak to me at that point. What's funnier though is that as the years have passed, it's Sheila from Intercoiffure. So if you guys aren't Intercoiffure members, Sheila's awesome. Sheila does great work. She's a rock star. She took the reins from Frank Gambuza and she's running and trying to do all different things. She knows that I'm so interested in the history of hair. And she said, we should talk. I'm not going to do her accent because I do a bad job, but that accent that she has from the South. We did a show. So for you guys that don't follow us, Beauty Business Reset on Facebook, we just hit our 150th episode, 3 years in. Started during COVID, 30 days of straight education that turned into a monster that we don't really know what we're doing with it at this point. But spent a lot of time with a lot of famous people, a lot of friends that Chris and I both have. But Sheila had said, I'd love to do something to pay homage to Vidal and what he does. And little did she know, I already had it in the works. So I had Elon Sassoon, I had Eden Sassoon, I had Maurice Tidy, I had Fernando Romero on, because they all sort of were, besides the kids being key ingredients. And that was the best that I could do to pay tribute to Vidal, who's somebody who I would have loved to have met. And what's really funny is that same thing in my Mayor Rolodex, like Elon and Eden, we text, we're not like every day, but hey, I saw you here. Hey, what's going on here? And, I've been able to retain a lot of those friendships, which I think that's my problem. I have to start being mean at beauty shows because if I get any more friends that text me, like sometimes I'm like, well, and they have the time zone thing and European. I'm like, all right, this is just,
Love it. Something that people don't know about you.
I was someone that should have went to art school. So I think that, I wanted to go to Parsons School of Design when I was younger. I was good enough, but not ambitious enough because, boy hormones at 16. Like I said before with my kids, I look at my son and he's way smarter intelligence-wise than I am, but I was more artistic. And I think that's sort of what's helped me with the industry here now is that I've always had that little bit of me that's like, man, I could have done something with that. So it's sort of given me a newfound love for my artistic side in a different way.
Love it. Okay. I'm going to snap my fingers. I'm going to give you a month off. Where would you go and what would you do?
Somewhere warm, man. Jersey, listen, we're talking about sustainability and global warming. I don't know what the hell is going on in the Northeast, but we don't have any seasons anymore. It's like winter, summer. But I'd like to go somewhere warm. Like I said, as someone that had an affinity for art, I always like some place that has, I feel like we've traveled enough that everywhere has culture, right? That is interesting. I just like the art component of it. And I think I'm old enough now to appreciate it in a different way where I don't necessarily have to walk through the whole museum with the headphones on and listen to it. I can just look and appreciate.
Yeah. Something you're terrified of.
Sharks. Jersey Italian, and that's it.
Favorite curse word. Favorite curse word.
Am I supposed to say it, or am I supposed to spell it? Oh, the F word. Listen, same thing. Jersey, it's like, what's for dinner? Fuck you, right? Everything.
Okay, your favorite comfort food?
I'm a steak guy.
You and me.
Yeah,
You
that's
and
just
me.
always my steak and potatoes, man.
I
There's a
don't.
tiny bit of Irish in there. That's
And I
always
don't
what
know
I.
if, being as you're a New Jersey dude, I don't know if I can say Pittsburgh style. Are you a Pittsburgh style steak?
I'm a fan of all types of steak, and everybody would think pasta would be the first thing being from Jersey, but I got so fat during COVID that I'm like, I don't know. I'm a pasta lover from afar.
Okay, here two more quick ones here. I'm not sure if you know. In Canada, we call it a do-over. Do you know what a do-over is?
Sure.
Okay, one do-over. What would it be? What would it have been?
I wouldn't be in the hair industry now. I'm only using. You know what's funny? To be honest with you, I went to a school that had a VOTEC. I knew a lot of girls that were in my, friends of mine that all went to VOTEC, and there was no money exchange. It was basically subbing out another class. I would have went to beauty school. I would have got my license, even though in those days I had no affinity or no connection to it. I wish I would have done it because I'd be the only person that graduated. Listen, I'll be 50 next year. I'll go to beauty school now. I'll be the first person to charge $250 a haircut day one out of beauty school.
Bingo. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, good. So I want to run this by you here, and this is just a couple of quick things on here. Is that if you could have one wish for our industry, what would it be?
I think communicate better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just for salon owners to staff or staff to salon owners or staff to clients. Is just when I talk to salons from a business standpoint, everybody wants to stretch out meetings, right? How often do you have meetings? Oh, we have them every 6 months. Oh man, once a year. Do them more often. When you look at, the stats here in the state always, they don't do them now because we have so much other nonsense going on here in the U.S. But they used to say that, one of the biggest deterrents to have your kids get on drugs was to have dinner together, right?
Yep.
5 o'clock dinner or whatever. Have the same concept in your salon. It doesn't have to be a long meeting. A 5-minute morning. Hey, there might be something. Hey, there's a new client. Hey, this is here. Hey, we're out of this. But encourage that little bit of, hey, it's just us before the doors open and everybody's here. But to encourage that sort of camaraderie and that team. And if you do it small and often, nobody cares, right? It doesn't seem like, we got to come in on a Monday for a 3-hour long thing. Everybody's so much more responsive and respectful.
Yeah. And if there was one thing that for the people that are watching and listening right now, if they could just let go of or stop doing, what would that be?
Well,
not that.
Whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
We had talked about the consultative aspect of what you do in the salon. And as the person that runs the front desk, I am the voyeur to a really busy salon and I hear everything. Besides, it's just you're there all day long. Make sure that you stop saying, how's your color type of thing. That's a thing. Yeah. Start to convert it to what would you like to change? What did you like about it last time? Is there something we can do different? There's so many things like that. And I love my new thing now is listen, no matter what brand you carry, they all have 9 finishing products, right? Hairspray would be great for the 80s in New Jersey that you could stick yourself to the wall. Anybody old enough to remember the old crazy commercials with the guy with the helmet and he stuck to the I-beam, down to, shine sprays and things like that. Give them the option. People like to have an option. Like I said with Paris, how would you like your finish?
Yeah.
Right? Do you want dessert? No.
Yeah.
We have great, give them an offering. Stop going so abrupt. If you're overbooked and you're double booked and you're running behind, raise your prices and stop doing that. If you go crazy, you're doing a disservice to the clients. There's just so many facets with that. I guess maybe if I had to say it, time management, be better at the time management because nobody's ever talked to hairdressers about time management. Right? It's never been, that's a business thing. That's just, and you guys have to realize that regardless of whether you're a booth renter, a chair renter, employee-based salon, you're still your business within the business. Run it like a business. Be a boss. Go in. It doesn't mean you have to be nasty, but claim your space and be the expert that you are. I mean, after 10 years of experience, it's man, you should be able to mic drop and say, hey, I'm not going to be in next Friday because I have a wedding to go to for my favorite cousin. Oh, you mean you can't just come in the morning for me? Absolutely not. Either come the week before, come the week after, or come during the week. Like, the balance doesn't have to be, you don't have to wait for the work-life balance to come after you.
Right.
Sometimes you need to go in and say, hey, listen, I need a little bit of a restructure. And remember, April is a month to change. Change any time that you want. Wake up tomorrow and say, I'm going to do yoga. I am not going to say that tomorrow, but you can. But wake up tomorrow and change what you do. And be excited about it, and tell your staff or your clients or whoever it is that, hey, this is going to be exciting. I always hated the way we did this. We're going to do it new. Spring is sprung.
And just before we wrap it up here, we've talked a lot about sustainability, et cetera, but if we sparked an interest to someone and they haven't started on this yet, what can they do? Where should they go? Who should they contact?
Well,
how would they get started?
So the two biggest ways to even get in it whatsoever, first of all, make sure your brand is somewhat sustainable. I know it sounds odd. It doesn't have to be, but that's always a good precursor. I can message me out. I said, we're a Davina salon. I know all the best sustainable brands that are there, that the companies themselves have some type of consciousness to them. But monitor. You can't change anything dynamically. And here's what I love to do with salons that want to be more sustainable. Look at what your usage is. What's your energy usage? What's your water usage? Not to make yourself more sustainable, but to save you money and be more sustainable. And that's the benefit sometimes too, is the saving money aspect, that if I can have you save the planet and make you feel whole when you go home and have a story to tell your clients, but actually save you money at the same time, like Vish, and hopefully I'm allowed to plug.
Yeah, no, please.
Sustain Beauty Co., which does, they do biodegradable disposable towels and capes. They do the Eco Heads. Vish does the color management scale that has, everybody in the salon industry wants really good software with online booking. Vish does really good software that tells you how much waste, not from the environmental, from the dollar standpoint, down to the client, down to the shade. So when you look at the fact that those things are there and accessible, you could run a stronger business and be more environmental by default. So if you came to me and said, hey, I own a salon, I need to save money, I would say, great, here's all the things you can do. And if I snuck it in later, it's like sneaking broccoli into like macaroni and cheese for your kids. If you asked me how to save money, I would show you all these things. And you'd be like, oh my God, you're saving me $500 or $1,000 a month or whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, by the way, you just ate broccoli and you're more sustainable.
Yeah. Listen, James, my new best friend, I just want to say thank you. And I just think that what I'm hoping has come to light here is that whether you're into it all the way or you're just getting started on it, that what I love that you brought to light was that we all have to do something. If we've only got 55 harvests left, what the hell can we do, and how can we get started on this? So, James, for everything that you bring to us, for everything that you do, right from your team members to your salon to the people that you help that's on the road and you teach, and for just being a part of our podcast, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart to you, a friend, a dear friend now, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad that we got to spend the time after all the phone calls. But anybody that needs any influence or any advice, I'm always open to it. It's really not that difficult, but and I'm always passionate about helping other salon owners.
Thank you.